Hi there. I'm going to tell you about PublicEditor. We're taking a citizen science approach to the problem of misinformation in the media. We engage and empower the public because we realize that this problem requires more than a technical solution. It's going to require a social solution. If people are going to trust and understand credibility metrics, they need to be a part of the process. Just to back up, the challenge that we're really facing here is that publishing has become so cheap and easy. It's democratized far faster than fact-checking and editing, and current economic incentives reward clickbait a lot more than quality journalism. As a result, journalists and readers who are interested in quality find themselves drowning in low-quality, biased, mistaken, and fallacious information. But wouldn't it be nice if we all had some way of knowing what we were getting into before clicking on an article? If we could see in one graphic an overall assessment of an article's credibility, and perhaps some information about the types of biases or errors that were found in the piece? Such a credibility badge would drive the demand for and supply of higher quality content. But how can we measure truth? This seems to be one of the most important questions in our day. There's almost a panic in public epistemology. People just don't know how they can know what they can really know. But it's not as scary as it might seem, and we're not totally helpless. Humans, through science, have assembled a massive infrastructure and apparatus for inquiring into the truth value of claims. From experimental methods to statistical tests, pattern recognizing algorithms, we've built up evidence-based models of the atom, discovered the forces and mechanisms of life-saving chemistry, and uncovered the living blueprints of our own bodies. Science is our rigorous mass collaborative process that we use to understand what is real in the world and what is not, whether we're talking about atomic forces, human biology, or claims made in a news article. So we don't need to despair. We have hundreds of years of accumulated knowledge to draw on, including the rules of logic and rhetoric, and from the social sciences, a catalog of the ways that we humans are predictably irrational. Even schools of journalism have established standards and practices for pursuing the faithful communication of true claims. Through PublicEditor, we bring all of this information together. We compile all of the learning from these fields into sets of credibility indicators that are used to generate an overall credibility score for articles, journalists, and news sources. So we look for evidence of flawed scientific thinking, like an author ignoring selection effects, or we look for evidence of confirmation bias or other psychological biases. Citizen scientists in our community look for argumentative fallacies like posing a false dilemma or setting up a straw man, and they scan through articles ensuring that reporters sought comment from multiple sources and avoided excessively emotional tone. These are just a few examples of the many indicators that go into our credibility scores. Now, in an ideal world, we would all walk around with all of this knowledge in our heads, and we could just read the news and immediately notice all of the errors. But that's not quite how the world is right now. So instead, we need a community solution. The people who know how to recognize these errors need a way to farm out the work to a broader community of people, each of whom can be trained to reliably look for just one of the indicators of credibility. So the generalists on the left here highlight passages of an article committing some broad category of error, and then they send the detailed labeling work to specialists in the middle who focus on one type of error at a time. All of these labels from the specialists come together into our credibility indicators. Here's a quick view of what a generalist person, the person from the left, might do. They would read full news articles and annotate paragraphs containing errors. A specialist will look at the smaller paragraphs by themselves, and they will apply conceptually specific labels to the words. Really what they're doing is just answering questions about one indicator they've been trained to recognize, and then they highlight the text that justifies their answer. Very much like a reading comprehension task that we all did, hundreds or thousands of times in middle school. The next question is, how can we actually trust the public and their judgments? And here, there's a lot of design that goes into our work. So first things first, the tasks that these specialists are doing are atomized tasks that really insulate users from opportunities for bias. So they don't come in and just try to apply every possible label to an article that they dislike because it came from Breitbart or it came from the Huffington Post. They're focusing on a paragraph at a time, and they're looking for one particular or maybe two particular mistakes at a time. But even before someone becomes a specialist with labels that go into our credibility scores, we do a lot of training with them. We give them instructional videos, and we test them against work that's already been done by the computer, that's already been done by the community and found to be valid. We also have a number of systems for debiasing the work. Part of it is the design I just explained, but we also have multiple people vote on a single datum. They vote with their labels. If 7 out of 9 people choose the same label for the same sentence, we probably believe that it's correct. And then we have a number of different techniques for bias testing to make sure that our users are not introducing their bias into the work. Those are all the different ways that we question and wonder and ensure that each user is not just contributing to our credibility metrics, but that the users themselves are credible. So some of the things we do when we're looking across multiple users' answers, we ensure that there is quite a bit of agreement about what the most likely answer is. So we're looking for a peak in a distribution of answers. If there is no peak, or if there are multiple peaks, like the bimodal distribution on the bottom right, then we don't accept that information into our overall credibility score. Similarly, we can look into our users and understand how liberal or conservative they are. If their answers are correlated with their partisan biases, we're not interested in those answers. As long as they're uncorrelated, we will take them and put them into our credibility metrics. I want to say a little bit about how we actually bring users into our process. We've already talked a little bit about the data flow. But there are different categories of our users, and a single person can engage with PublicEditor over time. On the left here, we see a reader. This is someone who, perhaps at our website or using our Chrome extension, will see our credibility badges and our labels over articles, and they'll find them useful. At some point, they might even be reading an article and notice a mistake. And instead of shouting into the void, they'll use our extension, really just a simple hypothesis module that we'll be building. They'll use that extension to flag content that they think merits review by our citizen science community. Then, if that flagger is particularly active, we're going to invite them to become a certified specialist and pull them into the system I showed you before. Over time, as they learn more and more credibility indicators, they'll take on more responsibility as generalists. So you can see how this whole community can be built up over time from various users who are becoming more engaged as they go. To make all this happen, PublicEditor has a great team with a diversity of skill sets and experience. We have software designers and engineers, a librarian, former journalists, social scientists, and even a Nobel Prize winner. These are just most of our team pictured here, but there are also a few people from LA helping us with PR, and quite a few advisors around the country who are really focused on this problem. So far, we've made substantial progress. We've compiled over 150 of these credibility indicators spread across the categories that we've talked about. We have already created citizen science annotation software, and we've done a lot of work designing the data flows that will generate our credibility scores. We've also already got built-in community to get all of our work started. One of our project co-founders leads a course on scientific critical thinking that has hundreds of students who will be testing our software in the fall of 2017. What's next for us is that we are in the process of designing visualization dashboards for administrators of PublicEditor, but also for the public and for editors at newsrooms. We think, like we said from the very beginning, for credibility badges to be trusted, they have to be understood by the community, and everyone should be able to click through and see how every last judgment that goes into a credibility score is made. We're also designing training interfaces so that our initial users can walk that path from a reader to someone who's flagging content to someone who's working in our citizen science community, either as a specialist or a generalist. And we're still working a bit on our credibility score generation. We have a map for how that's going to work, but there's certainly some fine-tuning to do. And we'd be really interested in having help with the gamification of our interfaces. We think they're pretty fun, but we know we can add user reputation badges and certifications and all sorts of little smaller fun gamification routines to improve the user experience. Our roadmap right now is that we, like I said, plan to be deploying to university students in fall 2017, and we'd really love to have a larger citizen science pool later on at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. We anticipate working with citizen science platforms like Zooniverse or Crowdcrafting or Volunteer Science, each of which has a portal where any number of thousands of volunteer scientists can come learn about our project and start doing some annotation. Especially with some developer and design help, we want to be launching to the broader public in 2018 in time to vet the top 200 most shared articles during the 2018 campaigns. We really appreciate you taking the time to take a look at PublicEditor. Just showing some of our interfaces here in the last few slides. This is what flaggers might use. It's kind of a variation on hypothesis, which some viewers might be interested in or already familiar with. And then the other two interfaces, a generalist would kind of read through a whole article and do this high-level highlighting, and someone who's a specialist gets to dig in a little bit more. We really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot for watching. And if you'd like to get in contact with us, please click on the link below or email me. It's nickbadams@berkeley.edu. Thank you very much. Bye.